We begin our session with the Shanti Mantra. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahanau Bhunaktu. Sahavityam Karavavage. Tejasvinavadhe Tamastu Ma Vidvishavage. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tatsate. So last class, we had an overview of what is spirituality. And we finished with the point of three things we said. One is the knowledge system and the science, I don't want to call it science, let us say the knowledge system and the wisdom, the practical wisdom of learning to influence how the aspects of consciousness influence the sequence of events in the world, in this universe, in the world around us, in our life, etc. So this I called magic. It's easy to understand. Basically, all by meaning magic, I mean rituals, prayers, everything I put inside this. Anything we do in our mind, using our mind, thoughts, certain actions, with an intention to influence the spiritual realm, the psychic realm, the realm of consciousness and the subtle world that we believe or understand, to influence this gross phenomenal world that we experience. The unseen aspect of life that influences the seen aspect of life. An intention to influence that through a belief or a knowledge system or a combination of both with deliberate efforts. This would be a spirituality in external action or magic. This is what I am meaning by magic. So whatever ritual or prayer we can think of, it will come under this definition. Then second, we understand the unseen or the psychic, the spiritual dimension in us, the spiritual, the power in us, the spirit, the different aspects of us as the spirit, that may or may not influence or at least sustains our thought processes, the way we express ourselves, and that which governs and directs our thoughts and actions. For example, Gayatri Mantra, Savitri Mantra, which goes by the popular name Gayatri Mantra, it says, I meditate on that unlit light, that worshipful, unlit, self-effulgent light. That directs my thoughts and actions. May that light guide our intellect, or may that light guide our thoughts and actions. I invoke its brilliance. I meditate on its brilliance. May that illumine our intellect. Yodeva Savitaha, that divine Savita, Savitra, the sun, the self-effulgent being, the consciousness. Asmakam Diyo Dharma Vigocharaha, our Dhi, the thinking, Dharma, actions, Gocharaha, that which guides and that which prods, that which sustains and makes it work, right? Prerayet tasya yad bhargaha. We invoke its effulgence, its brilliance. That worshipful light we meditate upon. Tad varenyam upasmahe. That is the meaning of the Gayatri Mantra. The Vedic Gayatri Mantra, we are not supposed to say loud and share like this. I know it is available in all kinds of YouTube videos, but let me not do that blasphemy. Vedic mantras have a certain level of respect, and I would like to maintain that. So Gayatri is not meant for everybody. So good. So that is an example. The famous Gayatri Mantra is an example. When I am invoking the unseen, so the self-effulgent luminous consciousness is experienced as myself, but it is not an objectifiable entity like like this computer, for example. It is, or your phone or laptop. It is not an objectifiable entity that I can meddle with. I can only invoke it, pray for it, based on my understanding of it. And there are set ways of doing that. So that is influencing the spiritual realm for the sake of refining or purifying or taking care of my software, which is yoga. I said that. And the third, the knowledge of myself as the spirit. I am the spiritual reality that sustains this universe. This is the knowledge. I am Brahman, that what they say in Vedanta. So the knowledge of the pure consciousness, the information, and the world, all the structures that we see, the experiencing phenomenal world, the relationship between these three, and the truth of myself as that supreme consciousness, that is Vedanta. So this is all spirituality. No matter where you go, which religion you go, which sampradaya tradition you go, these three will be dealt with. They may be dealing with it in different ways. They will be, for example, they may have a different idea of the relationship between me, the individual, the supreme consciousness, the matrix of information, and this universe. That which, the God, what we call as God, that the realm of consciousness, that the power in consciousness that creates, sustains, and dissolves this world. That spiritual power, that force, the relationship between that, me, and then the events, the sequence of events, and me, my ego, and the consciousness that I experience inside of me, that which is beyond the mind, which is in me, the pure consciousness. The nature of all this, the relation, interrelatedness, the interconnectedness. There are various, like Vishta, Dvaita, Advaita, Dvaita, all that is there. And then there are these polytheistic, monotheistic, all kinds of, speculations are there. But the Veda tells something, the Vaidika Sampradaya, the Veda, the Vedanta says what it is. And it is the clear understanding that what Vedanta tries to tell you is Advaitic in nature, is the non-dual reality. So that is the declaration of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. And of course, that's what this is about. Okay. Now, it is not, now the point is, it is not whether I belong to this school or that school. It is not the truth that is relative to this school or that school. See, jnanam, when we say jnanam, knowledge about anything, right? Knowledge about anything depends on the nature of that object. Whatever I want to understand, I want to make a carrot soup. I don't know why I'm thinking of carrot soup, but carrot soup, let us say. The nature of the carrot and the way to make the soup and how much it needs to be cooked in order to be okay for a soup, right? This is the knowledge. So the carrot, the nature of the carrot, the knowledge about the ingredients in the carrot and the ingredients required for the soup is one. You cannot have different opinions about it. For a particular kind of soup, there is only one knowledge. There are no different options. There is no choice in knowledge. Now, me, the individual, I can have any kind of relationship with that knowledge. I may apply the knowledge. I may not apply the knowledge. I may read all about carrot soup and end up making tomato soup. All that doesn't matter. I read about soup, but I end up making sambar. It's okay. So that is all what I do. I do or I don't do, I do something else, it rests on me. But what it is a given. So I have to discover it. It is real, it's like science. In the sense, the physics of a system is what it is. So I need to understand this. I have to remove the layers of my ignorance about it, and I have to arrive at the truth of the nature of a system. It is a fact, it's there, it's a truth. So the truth is not going to, it is what is there is there. So I have to discover it. So similarly, the spiritual reality or the reality or the knowledge or the truth of the spiritual reality is one. I either know it or I don't know it. I understand it or I don't understand. Now you may say how different prayers are working. So there are somebody had a problem, some issue. They prayed and solved the problem. Now you may ask, this person prayed to Lord Vishnu, the other person prayed to Lord Shiva and solved it. Another person prayed to Ganesha and solved it. Another person just did self-hypnosis and projected and solved it. So which prayer is true? All prayers are equally valid, right? Now this is very different from how prayer, what is the mechanism by which prayer makes things work in life, that mechanism, right? The connection between prayer and problem solving. That mechanism is one. I may have applied that mechanism through so many modes. It's like I can browse the internet. I can go to the internet through any browser. But if I have to go to talk with somebody, or if I want to send a Gmail, I can use whatever browser I want, but I have to log into Gmail. And I have to type the correct address and all that, and only then the email will go, or I have to type the correct web address there in the bar. Only then I will be able to go to the website. So that there is no choice. But what tools I use, how I go, the front end changes, right? So similarly, when I talk about the truth of the spiritual reality, what it is something that we need to understand. But when it comes to practical applications, whether what I have understood is correct or not, the skill, the wisdom, and the methods that I use are in line with the reality, spiritual mechanism and the reality or not, it can be only answered in time. I see if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then the problem is not with the spiritual side of things. The problem is with my ability to access the spiritual side of things. So we say, I did all this, I did all the prayers, I did like this, I lived like that, and still things don't happen for me. Why God is doing this to me? All this problem comes because we don't understand how things work in the spiritual realm. Just like if I want to do surfing, I have to go to a beach and find in which beach the waves are big. If I want to go with my kids to enjoy an evening in the beach side, I have to make sure which beach does not have big waves and which beach is safe, and if the climate is okay, there is no sea surge and all that. So I have to make sure of that and then go there. Now, the ocean is what it is. I have to have the knowledge. If I don't have the knowledge, if I don't do enough research and I end up in the wrong beach, and then I end up with some accident, unfortunately, it is not the fault of the ocean. Understand? It's my fault. It's not the fault of the ocean. So similarly, in spite of all the prayers and everything, and things are not working, maybe there is no connection between the prayer that I'm doing and what is happening, or the prayer that I am doing is not enough, or maybe this thing is not influenced by any prayer. It is happening by my karma. Whatever it I think has to be endured, and this is like a destiny and it has to happen. Or maybe it is better that it happens. There are some things in our life we don't like it when it happens. But later on afterthought, after a few years, when we look back, oh, it could not have been better in any other way. It was tough, but I think that was the right thing to happen at that time. Like that, many people have realizations about many events. So whether an event in life is the best option or not, spiritually speaking, we never know. If something has already happened and it is the best option or not, we will never know. Never. We will never know. So we have the understanding of the laws of karma and the karma theory and all that. And we learn to take it as whatever happened is for the best. It's a certain understanding that we develop, turning the unknown side of things to our own benefit. So we turn what we don't know something, and we learn to relate with the unknown in a way that is beneficial for me. It is not self-deception, because it could be this way or that way, and I will never come to know. But it is more intelligent to take it in a way that is useful for guiding me in my present and for my future. Sorry? That's it. Sorry, who was that? Talking to me? Okay. This video needs to be edited. No problem. So, I learned to relate with what already happened in a way that is useful for me now and for my future. Right? So, like this, we have different aspects of how we approach the realm of magic, the performance spirituality. And I told you that there are different levels with which we can relate to it. I may be in trouble. Usually the people who are in trouble, they come to this. Trouble, there is no way, I don't see any way out, so I am resorting to some spiritual means. And there are these lazy people who, by hook or crook, get things done. Okay, it's like, when we were students, before exam, we are all devotional and, caring for that street corner Ganesha temple. Just before the exams, we go to the Ganesha temple and do all the prayer, and we promise Ganesha that we will give a coconut and all that. We make deals to make sure that the exam goes well. But Ganesha can't do anything about it unless I have studied properly. If I have studied properly and I'm all prepared for the exam and I write the exam well, maybe after praying to Ganesha, the Ganesha will make sure that the person who corrects my answer paper, is in a good mood while correcting. Maybe that Ganesha can ensure, because that is out of my hand. But he can't do anything if I have not studied for the exam. So that way of trying to use magic for shortcuts in life is not a healthy approach, but people do that. Especially there are these people endowed with a lot of money. They can hire these specialist priests, tantrics and all that, to get things done for them. So they will do some rituals. There are very corrupt politicians who are always having a few tantrics and priests in their hand, who will go and do rituals for them shamelessly. No matter how corrupt those guys are, they will go and do for them. Those people will be like asuras. They talk against the religion. They will talk against the Veda. They will do all kinds of trouble. They will give all kinds of trouble for the tradition. Still, these priests will shamelessly go and do rituals in their house. And they now put a status also that I did this ritual in that minister's house. Right? So we have that. So they can get things done. But you may think, how fair is this? Why is God seeing all this? These are all questions. So all these kind of questions come. You say, why is God seeing all this? That person is a number one crook and asura. And there are these priests who are going and doing the rituals in their house. Why that ritual is working? Why things should work for them? Should not God punish that man and the ritual? So God is not police. Because we have somehow developed an understanding that God is like America, world police. He comes and fixes whoever needs, whoever has some problem, he comes and fixes it. Whoever is oppressing, whoever God thinks is doing something wrong and oppressing somebody else, somebody needs freedom. So God comes in and gives them freedom from the oppressor. That, like America, God is not USA to come down and interfere in everything. So we have this understanding. We have this popular understanding that somehow, God is looking at all this and keeping quiet and not doing anything. All this would be true if there is a God who is an individual with a lot of personal preferences and, who works according to what he understands as correct or not. And he has his personal will and, polices things. But in reality, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on our understanding, fortunately, if I have the right understanding, unfortunately, for me, because I have wrong understanding, wrong expectations, and I'm ending up feeling frustrated, there is no such God. This is something we need to clearly understand. So, when we understand the nature of the spiritual reality, I will question my understanding. It doesn't happen like that. So, when it repeatedly doesn't happen like that, if I'm continuously expecting that, then I am the one who is going to get frustrated. But the spiritual reality is not going to change for me. I will have to tweak my understanding. I have to grow in my understanding in order to match what is actually there in the spiritual reality of the world, right? The spiritual reality and the mechanisms and the spiritual laws that influence the events in life, right? So I have to understand those laws. If I don't understand, there is no point in creating my own fantasy and expecting the spiritual universe to, to work according to that. It's not going to happen. So this is one. Similarly, when it comes to the yoga part, influencing this software, we have the yoga shastra and everything, and we need to understand how this works. A simple thing, like there is this concept of three gunas. Right? So we have this, I keep on telling you, it's one of the most fundamental things, sattva, rajas, tamas. So we have a framework of understanding. We say there are these three modes of nature, the sattvic mode and all that. I have mentioned in many classes, you can also study later as time goes. All those things that are connected with happiness, harmony, peace, love, knowledge, all that equilibrium, all that belongs to the quality called sattva. Then there is sattva in lifestyle, there is sattva in food, there is sattva in wearing clothes, there is sattva in thinking, there is sattva in speech, there is sattva in action, there is sattva in information, there is sattvic knowledge in the sense ideas that are sattvic in nature. So the more I am encouraging the quality of sattva in my life, the more I will experience peace, harmony, equilibrium, the better it will be for me to acquire knowledge, the more I will be prepared to assimilate the knowledge that I have acquired, or the way in which I relate with a given knowledge will be in a healthy manner that is beneficial for my happiness and for my well-being and for everybody's well-being. Right? So there may be a knowledge. I can approach that knowledge in a sattvic way, in a rajasic way, or in a tamasic. But the knowledge is knowledge. What I do with the knowledge depends upon my nature, right? The quality of my mind. There is a knife. I can cut some fruits and distribute for everybody else. Or I can go and kill somebody, or I can threaten somebody, or I can, have some, take the knife in my hand and have some feel powerful and all that, right? Oh, see, everybody is scared of me, whatever. So depending on the knife, depending on my nature, I use the knife, but the knife is a knife. The possibilities of what I can do with a knife is, that possibility exists, right? So it depends on what I do with that possibility is based upon my quality, the quality of my mind. So if I want more happiness for myself and for others, there is no choice here. Sattva equal to happiness. Simple as that. Then there is another quality called Rajoguna, Rajas. Rajas means activity, action, passion, right? But Rajas also means struggle. So for some things, and also there is Tamas. So for some things, Rajas is good. For some things, Rajas is not good. Sattva is useful for the purpose of happiness, but Sattva may not be useful when I want to accomplish some goals in a certain amount of time. For that, I need Rajas. And there is a quality called Tamas. Tamas is very useful if I want to have a nice sound sleep in the night. If I want to take rest and sleep well, I need Tamoguna. But other than that, Tamas is not useful for anything. So, and Tamas is good for the Chitta to sleep, but Tamas is not good for the Buddhi in action. So if I have a Tamas operating on my Buddhi, my intellect, then I will tend to understand things wrongly. Then I will come to wrong and crooked conclusions about things. No, the perversion, all that is because of Tamas. And Tamas Rajas, right? So similarly, Tamas is also, when I use Tamas as my motivation for action in all my in my activities and the decisions that I make, it will lead to more suffering, more pain in the beginning, pain in the middle, pain in the end, consequences, suffering before action, pain during action, and pain and suffering as a result of, as a consequence of action. Rajas is the predominant motivation in all my activities, in all my decision making. It may be very exciting for a very short time, and then after that, it will always end up in some frustration. That is usually the fate of Rajas. So, but at the same time, Rajoguna is useful in some context, Tamoguna is useful in some context, Sattva Guna is useful in some other context. So I need to understand which quality of nature I must adopt in order for a given purpose. So understanding of these three qualities in my mind and how they influence my mind and how I develop, encourage or discourage any of these qualities in my system is going to give me access to the switches that drive me in different situations. There is also, there is something called, when it comes to handling the software, we have fantastic tools. There is a tool called Swara Yoga. In Swara Yoga, based on the breath in our nostrils, we can say which kind of energy is operating in us. It's currently dominant in the mind. So if we align our activities according to, because this is unconscious energy, so this dominant energy is regulating our unconscious mind. So what kind of thoughts we get, what kind of intentions we get, how we will instinctively tend to get affected by a given situation, all that depends upon the currently dominant energy that is driving the unconscious mind. So this is the knowledge system called Swara Yoga. So if I understand Swara Yoga, then I will either align my activity according to the nature of my Swara, or if I am a little advanced practitioner, I will be able to change my Swara before a given activity that needs to be done. Generally, they don't do this too often. Only when it comes to duty or very essential things, they will manipulate the Swara in order to be in the right frame of mind and body and energy, to be in the right state of vibes for doing that thing. But they do it rarely. Usually, they tend to align their activities according to the Swara. That's a more natural thing to do. Occasionally, a little manipulation is all right. And then also we have mantras, the knowledge of bija mantras, what mantras create what qualities in the mind, can generate emotions. Then there is the knowledge of music. We all know, all of us use music. Music is a way with which, so in Nada Yoga, there are laws by which we can, there are patterns which we can exploit to create the correct bhava. Bhava is um, a way of being, orientation towards things, a very emotional and a psychic, emotional and ego involved mode in which I relate with something. That is my bhava. So it's a very powerful, it's a very broad spectrum Sanskrit word bhava. So artistic expressions are completely all about bhava. So when you say, when they do this Bharatanatyam and all these dances, the bhava is very important. Now, how they bring the bhava? So the right mudras and the right gestures and the song having the right raga and the right thinking and the drishti, everything put together, they are able to bring the bhava in that expression. Right? So if they do it correctly, according to the Natya Shastra, the one who is looking at that performance, that person will experience that bhava, that they will invoke that bhava that they are expressing, they will invoke that feeling, that bhava in the person who is watching the performance. So that is the whole idea of artistic expression. In the Shastriya Sangeetam, in the classical music and dance, we have this, we know what pattern awakens what quality and aspects and vibes in a person. And we understand the correlation and we have a map. So you follow the map, you get the result. So it's very different from, there is some shepherd or somebody spontaneously singing from that bhava, the person or somebody with a lot of devotion to their deity, let us say, they are experiencing a certain bhava. And somehow they are musically blessed, right? And from that bhava they sing. In many occasions, we can notice that it will correlate with the map given by the classical music. It will be in one of the ragas that are associated with the bhava. Right? So like this, the saints, the rishis, the yogis, the shamans, the mystics of the world, whoever has had a higher perception or a sneak peek into the spiritual realm has given us a lot of information about it. So we use all that and learn how to deal with this, how to access this software, access the forces, the power that controls and regulates and guides and moves this software in us. I may think something, I may want something, but something inside me will not agree. I may not want something consciously, but somewhere deep inside me, I will be forced to do it. Something inside me will force me to be involved in it. So these dilemmas, these dichotomies we experience. It is because we don't understand how to manage that force that drives the unconscious mind, that drives that source from where our thoughts come. So they say that the brain is the source of knowledge and everything. But in spirituality, in the spiritual knowledge of the software, the seat of the mind is in the heart. Here, this area. And the first movement of thought begins here, energetically. And then it uses the information in the brain. So the information matrix and the brain networks and everything is used by the mind. Of course, you can to some extent influence how the mind behaves by influencing the brain chemistry. But there are many masters who have demonstrated that they can function beyond the brain chemistry. For example, a very famous example, it is a documented example. Neem Karoli Baba. This you can even read it in the internet. So there was this researcher, psychiatric researcher, who came to meet Neem Karoli Baba, and he had one of these psychedelic drugs with him. And even a small quantity is supposed to make you go into some kind of a trance and totally lose control of the body, but you will be in some kind of inner projected world, right? So the Baba took a handful of those, and then he just put it in his mouth. He just continued talking just normally, and nothing happened. So the guy was looking at his watch, half an hour, 1 hour, something happened, nothing happened. Then later he said, "What you think? You think this, these things can affect me?" And then he says, when you have mastered yoga, you can handle the mind. When you know how to handle the mind directly, the chitta at the level there, you will not be dependent upon, you can influence how things affect your brain chemistry. So, and yogis have demonstrated. And there are so many experiments done in so many ways where a normal person is not able to influence their unconscious inside them, their thinking or the state of mind. Practices of yoga, the practices of dhyana, meditation, with that they are able to influence what state of mind I maintain. So they're able to influence the forces that determine the quality of mind. So that is the spiritual knowledge about yoga. Now, when we have this to a certain extent, and when we are truly available, when we don't want to achieve anything in time, like I have talked many episodes about sadhana chatushtaya. Then go and look at that. And there are a lot of masters who talk about sadhana chatushtaya. So basically, when I don't want to achieve these time-bound goals, and all I want is to know myself to the exclusion of every other goal, then if I study Vedanta, if I listen to Vedanta, and if I already have enough prepared mind, there is a certain quality of mind that we need. The software should be ready to receive the knowledge. Then Vedanta will work for the person in a context of at least mental renunciation. We need a kind of a mental, at least we need a mental renunciation in a context where the mind is free from every other obligation. Then it is entirely available for self-knowledge. So it's a certain quality of mind that is needed for Vedanta. So that is that side of spirituality, the spiritual wisdom knowledge, right? About the nature of the spirit, of the nature of yourself as the spirit of this universe. So that is Vedanta, right? So this is what spirituality is all about. Now, spirituality is what it is, and how it is being used completely depends upon you or me, the individual, right? So we decide our approach to the way we decide our approach to the spiritual knowledge, wisdom, and the tools becomes our spiritual life. So we have a person who wants to exploit this knowledge for getting things done. So the goal, the purpose need not be spiritual. No, the purpose can be materialistic. I might just want to win a lottery, and then I'm doing some special prayers so that I will win a lottery. Whether I win a lottery or not is another question. But I am a very spiritual person. If I want to win a lottery, I buy a lottery, and then I do my special tantric prayers so that I will win the lottery. It is not a spiritual person. This is a materialistic person using spiritual knowledge. It's spiritual materials. So if I want to, there are people who make prayers, they will say, in India, we have this thing, you go around the people tree, and for getting a good husband, for getting good children, women go around the people tree. So it's a very famous prayer ritual, right? And also, the spiritual knowledge and tools, for the most part, will not bypass the natural laws. They complement, they work through the natural laws. This is another thing we need to understand. So the natural laws are part of the spiritual universe. The spiritual universe, you have the subtle world and the gross world. To a certain extent, natural laws can be tweaked to some extent. Depends on the level of mastery and the access that a person has over the spiritual tools, but usually not. So they say, since I told about this people tree, Arsaman, they say, going around the people tree, and then she touched her belly to see if she's pregnant. The woman wanted to have a child, so you go around the people tree 3 times, and after that you touch your belly, see if you're pregnant. It doesn't work like that, right? So I don't want to go into the details. So similarly, this is it's a simple way of saying. Similarly, whatever spiritual tools we use, we need to understand the laws, how it works, and we have to understand the practical, common sense, natural limitations. So it works alongside the natural laws, right? So it is not going to bypass the natural laws. So if the common sense level is not conducive, at the common sense level, sensory level, at the gross level, the situations are not conducive for a spiritual force to manifest the result, that result will not manifest. A simple thing like, if I want to put my specs inside this box, I have to open the box and put the specs. Right? I don't need to pray for the specs to go inside the box. You think what kind of stupid thing is he saying? But if you really reflect on so many things for which people pray and want spiritual help, they could simply solve that problem with common sense. So if we can solve something with common sense and science and our knowledge and our personal energy, with the hands, with our thinking, then it is better to do that. And no need to go into. So we can access the spirituality that helps in building the software, the managing the software. So we can access the tools of yoga, the yogic spirituality that is meant for handling my mind. We can access that in order to enable me to go through the process that is required for doing things to get things done. So whatever I need to achieve, I need to stay motivated. I have to have energy. I have to be in the right frame of mind. And if I get demotivated in the middle, I should know how to come back to sustain my motivation. And then, of course, I need a little bit of luck. So for all that, I can pray, I can practice my yoga and everything, and then do what needs to be done according to my common sense and understanding. So I don't need. So what kind of spiritual help? What kind of spiritual value addition that I can bring in a situation? I can bring in my striving to achieve a goal. What kind of spiritual effort is appropriate? What kind of spiritual knowledge is appropriate? And to what extent it is useful, or to what extent it is practical? So that using that, I have to access the spiritual knowledge, the tools, and apply myself to the practices in order to serve my purpose. There is nothing out there in the spiritual world that is waiting for me to be there for it. There is no God who is waiting for me to pray for him. God doesn't need my prayer. I need God's grace for my situations. So I am invoking God for my purpose. God has no purpose. It's like I'm a pauper and there is a millionaire. I have to go and talk to the millionaire if I want some help. The millionaire is not looking for me to give him some money. He doesn't need me for money, right? Similarly, the divine is not an individual with an ego who is looking for me looking for his creation to serve him. God is not some kind of, then it makes God a sadist. So God had no other job, so he created the world, he created all the people and everything, and then he scratched his head and then he created another person, and then he scratched his head a little bit more, then he gave them some rule book, and then he gave all the things that will tempt them to break the rules, and then he created punishment and all this kind of stuff, what monotheistic religions tell you. So God is not a sadist like, if he's like that, this God is a psycho, it's a sadist. So God is not like that. It's not somebody who's there, oh, I made this creation so that all this creation will worship me. So what kind of a psycho is narcissist? So this is not that's not how God is. If there is a God like that, then to hell with that God. We don't need to worship that God. That God is an idiot. So that God needs help. He needs to come for counseling. So the God is not like that. Thankfully, it's not like that. So, and if a God is like that, if there is a God like that, if we understand the spiritual laws of this universe good enough, we can tell that God what to do. That is the power we have as human beings. As a human being, I have complete access to the spiritual reality, provided I have the right mentor and the right guide and the right perseverance. I can go hands-on into the buttons that control this universal matrix, right? It's like the matrix code. I can access the source of this matrix called this universe. That's what every human has. So if there is a sadistic God who wants to control, then I can make sure that God will, I can put that God in his or her place. So that is the power a human has. That's what they say, even, and that's what Veda itself says. That is why Vedic Dharma, Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic wisdom is so important, because it puts everything in the open. It doesn't hide anything from anyone. Everything is in the open. It says, for a person who is self-realized, who has realized his true self, and who has gone beyond all desire, all the gods come to him with plates of offering. They bring offerings, and they are like waiting. Oh, master, what can we do for you? All the gods are waiting for him. That's what Shastra says. That means what? You don't, that talks about the greatness of spiritual wisdom. And it also talks about the greatness of gods, because the divine beings know what is truly valuable. The divine beings are not there. That's why they are divine. Otherwise, they become demons. So all the divine beings, assuming they exist, right? If they are divine, they know better than us. They have a better value structure and ethics than us. And they are more self-conscious, and they are more wise. They are wiser than us. And they understand things in a much deeper level than us. So obviously, they are going to be mentally, if they have a mind, they are going to be mentally more healthy than us. And they are going to have a more sattvic ego. You remember I told you about the sattva, rajas, tamas. So the more sattvic they are, a person is, the more sattvic a person is, the less harmful actions that person will do. That a sattvic person will not intentionally want to hurt anybody. The more sattva in the mind, the less you are capable of hurting. The more sattva in the mind, the more difficult it will be for you to eat meat, for example. One of the things, simply because it comes from a huge violence, when sattva is predominant in the mind, you will not feel like eating meat. Even if you're a meat eater, if you look back, there will be moments when you are not comfortable, not in a mood. You may not know what it is, but it is sattva. So when the sattva increases, violence goes up. And all these perversions go out. All these perversions, violence, these are all a result of tamo guna. So the divine beings are predominantly sattvic, like almost full 100% sattvic. They are like that, with a little bit of rajas. That's why they are very active, divine forces. So the divine beings their thinking is completely sattvic. That's why they are divine. They are more sattvic than humans on an average. So they know the value of wisdom. They know the value of knowledge. So they come with offerings, and they are ready to serve every little need of that master who has arrived at enlightenment of the self. That's what Shastra says. So based on these things that we have discussed, let each one of us examine how is our approach, individual approach to spirituality, and where we see the bug and where we need a little more understanding. So this is the basic principle, no matter which tradition you belong to, no matter which religion you belong to. These are the basic approaches and the laws. So if we, this is the basic approach to the spiritual laws and the wisdom and the knowledge of the spiritual reality that is behind this phenomenal experiential reality that we have, our everyday reality, and the hidden spiritual reality, the secret spiritual reality behind this. It has its own laws, it has its own reality, and we just need to access it. And it's out there for everybody. There is no secret. There is nobody stopping you. So the more we understand that, the better, and the more we examine our values, our goals, the validity and the wisdom behind our goals, the better we'll be in a position to relate with this spiritual knowledge in a meaningful way, in a way that is beneficial for ourselves and others. Yeah. So with this, I will conclude the talk and I will open the floor for questions. And henceforth on this topic, we will proceed based on questions. I have given a framework and I try to avoid as much jargons as possible. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. I hope that's not too much. I want to try to see if we can understand the spiritual wisdom that we have access through Vedanta, through yoga and all that. I'm going to see if we can access that without the burden of jargon, so that anybody can understand. I'm trying an experiment. So let us. Of course, I have to translate every term and then try to express it in a way that is relevant for us in our modern language. So that puts certain limitations, and it's an evolving strategy. So the more you participate, the more inputs that come from you, the better it will get, and it can benefit more people. You can write the question in the chat box, or you can ask on me. I'll wait for another 2 minutes. If there are no questions, we can finish the class. Just think about your own practice, your own thoughts, the dilemmas that you might have faced or heard, some disagreements that you might have regarding anything that you classify as spiritual. What you can't wrap your head around, or what doesn't feel agreeable for you, if you want to examine that, or if you have a doubt about how something works or not, we can bring it all in.
Namaste, Vanakkam.
Namaste.
Thank you for the class. Question is everyone have a different background, like family backgrounds, right? And then we are all interested in yoga or sattvic practices, but then the family have a lot of differences. So and then when we start doing, there'll be some opposition or like not supporting or not aligning with the practice because they have different lifestyle. So in this, how to like, for example, shower or like say daily practices, some nitya karmas, daily things.
Yes.
How to keep up when before we start already there are some red flags, any kind of practices, even before we start, there'll be flags, surroundings or people or family, all these things.
Right.
So how to continue without feeling
so this is about prioritizing.
Thank you.
It's like any goal. For example, when it comes to, see, a home is a resource that you share with your family members, right? So, if it comes to using any resource in the home, then you will have to discuss and see, like a space or the kitchen, or or some let's say some chair or something like that, or the bathroom. If you want to, or what can be done and cannot be done in a certain time of the day when you're practicing around you, that is comes under space. So you have to discuss with the family and see over the level of cooperation. If they completely disapprove of what you do, and this is very important for you, then it's about prioritizing whether you have to see your duty towards the family. Does it come in between you and your spiritual quest? And in that case, in a given moment, whatever you are practicing, whatever you are doing, how much of that can you accommodate? So it's a very, very individual based decision making. So it basically boils down to prioritizing. So what is important for me in my life? And to what extent I need to compromise? It's like this. To what extent I have to compromise my spiritual goals for the sake of duty to the family? And to what extent I can compromise my being there for the family? Here I'm using a different word. I'm not saying duty. Duty, you cannot compromise usually. But there are a lot of things that we put in that package called duty, which are not duty. For example, you are not responsible for what your parents think about what you are doing. You are not responsible for that. Or your partner feels uncomfortable. It's something like this. Your partner likes one cricket team. You like one cricket team. Your partner is very uncomfortable that you are a fan of that cricket team. You have no duty to accommodate that. So it is her problem. You have no problem with him or her being a fan of that other cricket team, right? It's as simple as that. So if they are very particular about this, then you will have to see whether that is the right partner or not, right? Or you have to find a way to agree to disagree or minimize conflict. So prioritizing. Suppose if you have a child, then you will have to maintain a home for the child. So the more mature person always ends up sacrificing. That's the law of life. So you see how much you can compromise for the sake of some peace and harmony in home. And then you go about it. And you find some other space and see how you can get your thing done with the least rubbing. So when it comes to prioritizing, how much I have to, how much I can compromise in reaching out and being there for my family and my home. According to your conscience, your understanding, maybe you can discuss with your teacher and then come to a decision, what is okay, what is not okay. And then based on that, you have to take some decisions. And if you take some decisions, if you have to take some hard decisions, so be it. And if you can make some little compromises for your comfort, psychological comfort zone, it's all. No, without affecting your core spirituality. If you can make some compromises here and there, it's all right. For example, when I was in Romania, this Easter, now yesterday was Easter in Romania. It was it's very important for their culture. Right? So when people from urban ashram, they used to, when we discuss, all of them became vegetarians and they don't eat meat and they all have their mantras and everything. The main problem comes in Easter. What do we do when they go back to their homes, to their parents, or to the native village or whatever? There is always that Easter lamb or whatever is cooked. It's there, and in Christmas, I think it's pig. So there is always something on the table, and then there are a lot of, the whole culture is a non-vegetarian culture. So at the end of the fasting, there is meat. And then the granny is upset if this guy doesn't want, already this fellow is following Hinduism. The Christians can't take it. It's very difficult for them. They call all this satanic and all that. So, but these guys are spiritual. They try to do everything, but they're not okay with that. There's already a lot of friction. So, but in an important occasion like that, I said, it's all right. If you see, you grew up eating that. If you don't want to eat, fine, but don't make a big deal to sit at the table. It's all right to sit at the table. Don't say you will not sit at the table because there is a dead animal and I am a vegan, or I'm a yogi, or I'm a spiritual. Don't say that. It's okay to be there. After all, your family, you are born into that. It's all right. And then if you can always come and you can, if you feel you're not energetically comfortable, you can always take a salt water shower and do some Nadi Shuddhi and mantra and you can clear it up. But don't make a big drama there because you belong to a different kind of you follow your spiritual system. You don't make a drama. I told her, and I said, if you can eat a little bit, you can always share a little bit so that they don't feel offended. You are the old people. You cannot change their thinking. But I'm flexible. I understand how things work. I understand purification. I understand pranayama. I understand mantras. So I do a little bit of compromise and accommodate that cultural context a little bit. It's all right. And then don't create discord in the family. I used to say that, and it worked very well, and they're fine with that. And some of them are okay. And sometimes there is, for example, somebody comes from a very strong religious tradition from another religion. I tell them, not to get too obviously, not to get astrally involved in our tradition. I have told to one of the students not to get mantra initiation because he is astrally very connected with his ancestors and all that. He comes from a family of priests. So I told him not to do that. So it depends on the level of entanglement that you have with the people in the house, how it affects you. So the prioritizing takes into account a lot of different variables. We can only say on an individual basis. So if I say something very dramatic like this, spirituality comes first, where God realization comes first, family and everything, all that doesn't matter because the desire for liberation comes after a million lives. Leave the house and run away. These kind of things sound very dramatic and very nice, but it's not practically used. It creates a lot of conflict. It creates a lot of discord, and it creates a lot of disharmony in oneself and karmic mess later, and it creates a lot of disharmony in the house. So in Tamil, we have an expression, samsara is like this. You throw a cloth, a very nice cloth, somehow it flew and fell on a fence with thorns. So you have to take it out carefully. If you drag it, you will only lose your cloth. Right? So similarly, when we get more serious about spirituality and we are in a life situation surrounded by people who don't approve that, respect that, or understand that, then we have to very carefully build our protective shield to take care of our spirituality and find an intelligent way for them not to affect us and us not to affect them, keeping non-violence and truth as the main motivation. We can try to do it as decently as possible. If we have to extricate ourselves, we extricate ourselves. There's no need to compromise there, if that is the right way to do it. Yeah.
Henry, thank you.
So I have something in the chat here.
Yes.
We will start with enthusiasm, and in the process, we start feeling it is not my cup of tea due to various reasons. How to overcome? Good question. We start with a lot of enthusiasm, then we start feeling it's not my cup of tea. Then we need to have a discussion on what is your cup of tea. that is where some study comes in handy, and we see the practical difficulties. See, it's a balance between putting that little bit of extra effort that is needed, a little bit of extra effort to challenge our limitation, to challenge our laziness, to challenge our comfort zone. To some extent is needed. But also, how much of that challenge I can manage on a sustainable manner in my sadhana, that is also needed. That understanding is required. We get it in a we get it over a period of time, and then we tweak it and arrive at the right dosage of enthusiasm that sustains our practice and does not mess up, that is helpful for sustaining the practice, and at the same time it does not mess up other areas of life, and it's not too uncomfortable for myself and others. So we should not leave it entirely, or we can re-examine. Should I do something else? Am I doing there are two ways in which your enthusiasm may go. Either because of my capacity to do it, even though it is the right kind of practice, or I have somehow ended up in the wrong kind of practice. This is not what I should be doing. I should be doing something else. But that decision making, it is better to do it with the help of a mentor or a spiritual guide who is well informed and knowledgeable and have some subtle insight into this kind of things, to have a personal discussion with that person, and then come to what requires, which aspect requires attention. So that's how it is done. I'll give a small example. You have this Nadi Shuddhi pranayama. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold. There is this ratio, 1:4:2. One part inhale, 4 parts hold, 2 parts exhale. Again, 4 parts hold, ideally. So when you come and sit for the practice, you are not panting, you did meditation, you did a couple of Kapalabhati and all that, you feel great. So what do? The first cycle you start. You inhale for 16 counts and you hold for 64 counts. First cycle, great. First half of the cycle. Then you are exhaling in the other nostril, 32 counts. But again, when you are inhaling, you are already panting. You can't inhale for 16 counts. Even if you somehow you manage, you hold inside, you are almost blacking out already around when you are counting 40. And then you have to exhale for 32 counts. So first cycle may go, in the second cycle you will start panting. Can't. Then what you do, you reduce the count. You don't inhale for 16 counts. You start with 4, 4, 8, 4, 4, 8, 4. Again 4, 8, 8. Again, then after that 4, 12, 8. And again 4, 16, 8, 4, 16, 8. And then 4, 16, 8, hold outside 4. 4, 16, 8, hold outside 4. Slowly you increase. Then you become better and better, and the system catches up with the rigor of the practice. And you are able to go into the next level of rigor. Just like video games, level 1, level 2, the same thing here. Both with rules and with techniques and with knowledge. Always, the whole spiritual knowledge is based on what we call as adhikari bheda in technical word. It's based on your aptitude. So the entire teaching, the job of the teacher is to give the student the teaching that exactly fits their level. Keeping the goal in mind, the goal may be as high as you want. You can keep any goal. You can be, the enthusiasm towards the goal can be sustained only if the practice that takes you towards the goal is relatable and practicable, and it is not too uncomfortable. Relatable, practicable, and not too uncomfortable. So that has to be done on an individual basis with the discussions, but that's how it is. So it is okay to tone down your practice to the level that you can handle, while still having a little bit of challenging for your comfort zone. Not get too comfortable, a little bit of discomfort is okay. That keeps your motivation and effort up. And what is uncomfortable right now, will become comfortable after some time. And then you put the next level of challenge, then create the next level of challenge, go through that, evolve, cross that, then the next level of challenge. Like that, gradually increase your difficulty level, involvement level, so that it sustains your motivation and also there is growth. So that's the approach. They say it's like taming the bull by giving grass. You give the grass, make the bull friendly, and then slowly the bull gets used to you. Bull starts cooperating. It is very easy to bring the bull and tie it to the in the cow shed, right? In the shed where you tie your cattle, the cattle shed. Instead of trying to pull the bull by force and all that, that's all the drama is not required. It's you know how to tame the bull, make it friendly. So similarly, make your mind and body friendly to spirituality. That's how it is done. So one more we have. Thank you. So we will finish the class. I think it's time. Yeah. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.
Thank you.